Hello and welcome, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and today we're going to be talking about the Emperor's most fervent followers, the Adeptus Sororitas, the Battle Sisters, the Guns with Nuns, also known as the Sisters of Battle. The Sisters of Battle are an Imperial faction within Warhammer 40k. They're a collection of primarily women. There are some men that join them, not as parts of the Adeptus Sororitas, but as parts of the Ministorum, and they fight in power armor not dissimilar to that of the Adeptus Astartes or Space Marines. They are not genetically enhanced super soldiers in the same way, instead perhaps being slightly more refined than the average human. Their abilities come from a little bit of tech, but primarily from their zeal and their faith. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Sisters of Battle are, and what their fluff is, what they do, how that works on the tabletop. I'm going to talk about my own headcanon, unique colour scheme for my army. I'm going to show off what my competitive army looks like that I'm taking to No Retreat this weekend, and then I'm going to briefly talk about No Retreat, which is a content creator tournament in Gibraltar for charity this weekend. But first, let's talk about the Sororitas. The elephant in the room is, why are they only women? Well, it's largely to explain away a particular brand of toy from Games Workshop, right? Originally, there were going to be female Space Marines, but they didn't sell very well, and later on they're branded into the Sisters of Battle, which did do, I guess, moderately well because they existed in the modern day. The models came first, the fluff a little later, explaining what is largely the women faction in 40k has been a thing that they've explained away later, much like much of the things they came up with early on. They've just come up with in-canon reasons for it later. The in-fluff reason for the Sisters of Battle being primarily or exclusively women is because there was an age of Second Civil War. After the Horus Heresy, there was the Reign of Blood, which was this big internal civil war where people were fighting over what the word of the God Emperor meant. Warhammer 40k is at its best when it is actually kind of parodying or satirizing bigger ideas and concepts, and this is bureaucracy gone mad. There is a law that was passed by Sebastian Thor after this big civil war that the ecclesiarchy could not have men bear arms. So the workaround for that was to load women up with weapons, and now we have battle nuns in space armor. It's a beautiful display of the over bureaucracy where women were allowed to step in because of how a law was written in Word. It's dumb, but I kind of love it. The sisters themselves are protected by the divine right of the God Emperor. If you didn't know who the God Emperor was, well, he was a gold-armored shitlord from Terra. He was a big, powerful psycho who looked to unify the strands of humanity resting throughout the galaxy during the Great Crusade. He was eventually injured and put onto what's now called the Golden Throne, a giant telepathic beacon at the center of the Imperium on Terra. The really fun thing about all this is that he's the God Emperor, and people like the Black Templars and the Sisters of Battle, and much of the Imperium worship him like a god. He is the central god of their theology. But the funny thing is, he was very secular. He was very like a typical neckbeard anti-religion atheist that you get on the internet nowadays, where he wanted to have the imperial truth pushed throughout this new Imperium to create a secular society where everything was logic and truth and reasoning, although somewhat dogmatic and believing everything he said. There's this interesting debate within Warhammer 40k of who is good and who is not, and what is true and what is not. A lot of things you read in codices and in canon fiction is essentially propaganda written by someone from within the Imperium, especially when it sheds a positive light on them. But there's no denying that within canon and within what we know, the Emperor of Mankind is godlike in his powers. He's the most powerful human psycho to have ever existed. So there's no debating that. But there's this interesting conversation around like how he didn't want to be seen as a god, but now he is seen as a god, and he is kind of godlike. But also the people who are doing things in his name are doing really abhorrent shit. It's quite an interesting part of the canon. And the thing is, the devout legions of the Imperium that draw power from him as a god do draw literal power from him. Modern day miracles are conducted. People survive things they should not. Things happen that are not explicable by science. What you gotta remember about 40k is that it might look like sci-fi, but for the most part it's space fantasy. Like, we live in a dark age where most of the technology isn't understood, similar to how the medieval ages of our world, our real history, didn't understand a lot of technology that was lost from the Greco-Roman and the ancient Greeks and all that sort of stuff. Like, the idea of building a Land Raider or a Rhino or similar is done by a self-contained machine that you have to keep control of that does it on its own once you give it resources, an STL. Yeah, people don't really know how their fucking weapons and equipment work. So having space magic like psychic energy and shit, or the manifestations of actual faith, which I guess is again just psychic energy really, probably explored in the Black Library stuff I haven't read, is Pretty cool. So how does this faith-based power look on the tabletop? Well, the entire army has an invulnerable save, meaning the average sister can, if they get lucky or they have enough faith, shrug off attacks that would destroy a normal marine, for example. They also have a mechanic called miracle dice. We have a predisposed pool of dice that you roll initially. You get them for like beginning of turn or for certain events like the death of a martyr, with martyrdom being a key theme in the Sisters of Battle. And then those dice can be slotted into upcoming rolls. So say you really need to make the shot or you really need to make that save, you essentially like kind of parade the Emperor and you get a miracle out of it. And that shit's cool. It allows you to like have much more agency over what you're doing. So whilst it all thematically and flavorfully makes sense of them being this church, this stupid fucking god, there's this cool shit where they get to manipulate dice rolls and make their own probability. And there's also like stratagems to spend CP, to discard dice, to uptick dice and stuff. It's wicked. They also have the ability to resurrect characters, mess with dice by changing them, like I said, with CP. And they can also attempt to deny psychic powers because every single one of them has the ability to do so. Faith, suffering, martyrdom, and sacrifice are the words you will see to describe these stratagems and abilities in the codices. Zealous. Very, very zealous, the Sisters of Battle. And much like other factions in the game, the Sisters have sub-factions. Space Marines have chapters, Necrons have dynasties, and Nids have hive fleets. The Adeptus Sororitas have orders. This is my custom paint scheme, which I call the Order of the Faithful Dead. My headcanon is as follows. They are a recently rediscovered order, lost on a planet that was out and cut off from the Imperium due to warp storms and similar. The girls believe they are empowered by the sacrifice and the death of their fellow sisters, and they paint their ceremony armor with a mixture of paint that's concocted from the cremated remains of their fallen comrades, hence the bone colors. And yes, I am explaining all of this away after I made the artistic choice to have them look like bone because it was influenced by the Deathwing. I don't fucking care. Morven Var has recently found them and is using them as part of her crusade across the stars to rip and tear anyone who doesn't see the light of the God Emperor or as their Lord and Savior. They are not nice people. A defining trait of the Order of the Faithful Dead is that they don't use flamers on their enemies for the most part, apart from a rare occasion where I feel like it. Immolating flame is reserved for the committing of martyrs' spirits to the protection of their own armor and stuff, right? The flame is important and sacred term for a different reason. Instead, it's all bolters and melters. Yeah, that's just me again explaining away why I love Strength 8 AP4 damage D6 shots. The Order prefers to fight at range and does so by using melter guns. Lots and lots of melter guns. But they do employ the use of repentia. These are the girls who have sinned, their faith has wavered, they've done something that has not been agreed upon by their canoness, and yeah, they must then repent for their sins by wading into battle, into close combat with no armor, with faith as their shield. The color scheme of my sisters is bone primarily, but the weapons and relics and pendants and like iconography of some of the vets and the superiors in the army are purple, because purple is like the veterancy color for my army. The repentia are allowed to be adorned in purple headdresses and golden chains, a reminder that there is strength in redemption and there is strength in faith. And redemption is a big part of this order too. For those that go into battle as repentia, stripped of their armor to fight their foe in brutal close quarter combat and come out alive, they're exonerated and they are, to an extent, redeemed. They are repentant and can be forgiven. Those that come back alive from being repentia are allowed to ascend to the rank of Celestian Sacrosanct. They are never allowed to carry Holy Bolter or Multi-Melter again though. There are repercussions for your actions after all, but their close combat experience is put to good use amongst the ranks of the Sacrosancts. The Sacrosancts are given purple armor as both a reward to show seniority, to see they've been through a journey and they have repented, and as a sacrifice. They're no longer carrying the spirits of the dead atop their ceremony like their fellow sisters are. Instead, they stand as a reminder to those they fight alongside that a fall from grace is never forgotten, but is not without a path to a new use. I also imagine that the Sacrosancts and the Repentia don't dine with the rest of the Order either. There is an ostracization that goes with having fallen. You are allowed to repent, you are allowed to be redeemed. Something that I believe in very strongly. It's probably the only thing I share a belief with these girls with, these fictional girls I've been carries up for. But they don't get to become normal sisters again. Some of you might not like that I have split colour schemes, but I just want to point out that this is a common thing in Warhammer already. The Blood Angels have red, black and gold armour across the chapter. I point to the Dark Angels here as well. They have dark green for the normal green wing, they have like a black or an off grey for the Raven wing, and they have bone white for the Death wing, which is the infants for this army anyway. So it's not uncommon to see this in Space Marine chapters, so I've done it for my sisters. So how do we play this order on the tabletop? Well, there are ways to make custom orders within the Sisters of Battle Codex, but instead, I'm playing them as Argent Shroud. On occasion, I'll split the army across both Argent Shroud and Bloody Rose, putting the purple girls into Bloody Rose, but when confined to just one faction, it's going to be Argent Shroud. Argent Shroud allows us to advance and shoot all guns, including heavy weapons, without any penalty, as if we remain stationary during the shooting phase. This means our melter spam has a surprisingly large threat range, and I do love me a multi-melter. This is something very fun about damage D6 weapons, especially when they're strength 8 AP 4. We also get to reroll 1 hit or 1 wound per activation, which makes the melters even more efficient, and we have a strat to shrug off mortal wounds on a 4-up feel no pain, just for 1 unit per phase, but with Sacrosanct being already quite tanky, that makes them incredibly durable. The Sisters of Battle get to pick 1 of 6 sacred rights before they start the match. There's one good one against Psychers, there's one good melee one. I take the one that gives you +1 to advance and +1 to charge because that really helps us to just maneuver stupid amounts of distance with our multi-melters. Stuff that people don't actually respect or understand until they see it in action. Sometimes a Retributor squad will roll a 6 to advance or use a miracle dice to get a 6 to advance, and then they move 13 inches before firing 24 more inches with a multi-melter. Pew pew. People really don't respect this threat range until they see it in action. And let's talk about my actual army then, which is full of multi-melters, by the way. This is what I am taking to No Retreat Legends, a charity event with some of the biggest names in 40k content there, ranging from sweaty tryhards with super metagame lists like Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming to guys who I don't think have played a single game of 9th edition, like Chapter Master Varak. Got him. Let's begin with some characters then, because I have a fucking load of them. Look, if I'm going to give up Assassinate points, I might as well commit to the plan. Keeping in mind that my army probably isn't the most competitive army out there, I think it can hold its own against most players, and I play to win, but against Qatari spam, or Buggy spam, or the current iterations of Drakari, I'm not equipped to battle out a win, honestly. Multi-millers aren't good into multiple, like 20, 30, 60, 80, 100 T3 1 wound bodies. They're super inefficient. First up, this is Morven Val. I know Stephen Box has moved away from playing her, but I still think you are insane to not play her as a force multiplier for Sisters of Battle. As a gun platform and a melee monster, she's pretty decent, but where she really shines is giving 1 unit full rerolls to hit and to wound once per turn, making 1 Retributor squad like 80% sure to kill almost anything in the game, even the tankiest of targets. She also gives rerolls of 1s to hit and to wound in a 6-inch aura around herself as well, which is better than most character buffs in the game, as well as being able to be bodyguarded by Sacrosanct, so she can sit back and fire crack missiles. She's pretty good at melee. She can fight twice once per game. She has a 4-up invuln, a 2-up save, a 4-up feel no pain to mortals, and half damage incoming from attacks, meaning she's pretty fucking tanky as well. Oh, and she rerolls all hits and all wounds in melee. Makes Guilliman like trash. Next up, we have the Repentia Superior, a kinky whip lady looking to whip up a storm, and she has some fucking friends. This is 7 Repentia. These girls absolutely fuck in close combat. The Repentia Superior gives them advance and charge, roll 3d6 and drop the lowest, and they get to fight on death for 2 CP. So sometimes you just purposely throw them into something that will either interrupt or fight first and will definitely kill them. Pop the strat, you fight on death, and you watch the Repentia take out bodies and models on destruction. They're a cruise missile. They will die because they only have a 6-up invuln, a 5-up feel no pain, no actual power armor, but that's still more durable than most T3 bodies in the game, and also they will kill things on the charge. And you get a miracle dice when they die because they're martyrs. A lot of Sisters players cried about being able to not advance and charges out of a Rhino anymore with a strat when the new book came out. And the Sisters of Battle Discord was one of the most whiniest I'd seen of Discords I'm on for armies. Sometimes and ultimately you just have to wipe the tears from your eyes, stop being a massive fucking baby, and look for alternative options in your book. Because the new books have a lot of good stuff in them. Back to the HQs then. Candice is our next one. She has reroll 1s to hit as a 6-inch aura. Obviously, she's a buffer. But she's also suited up to be a reasonably good melee threat. She has 4 attacks or 5 attacks, I'll have to check. And damage 3, strength 6 on her blade. She's got the warlord trait to heroic intervene 6 and fight first. I've done this weird thing where I've kitted her out with a 2+ save, permanent transhuman, and an extra wound off of a relic. But I don't know if you want that and the fight first. They might be counterintuitive. One is to tank hits and one is to hit first. I'm not sure. It's a new way to build her. Normally I'd play them in a split detachment, but you're not allowed to retreat. Next up are the priests. These are like chaplains for the Marines. You get to resolve litanies on a 3-up in your command phase. The little guy is basically just there as a +1 to attacks to Sacrosanct or to Repentia, and he also has the little mini smite I'll talk about in a moment. And Dogmata, though, is a beefier version, casting 2 a turn. She has +1 to invuns, +1 attack, or a 12-inch D3 damage of mortal wound smite. That is flat 3 into chaos. Although at no retreat there are no chaos at all, which is a shame. I would have took Thousand Suns myself if I had them painted, and I want to take Magnus on a plane. The fun thing about these is that if you don't manifest a spell, or say a spell, a litany in the early command phase, you can pay 1 CP to have that priest auto-manifest one in any other phase. So you can fire off the D3 mortals in the charge phase, for example, if you want to generate a miracle dice by killing a unit with one of yours, that's something, or a way to generate miracle dice with the sisters. Or you can damage Catan out of sequence and more than they would expect you to because you have a psychic phase. At Hellstorm's Chainsword or Bolt or whatever the fuck it was, I actually killed a Catan with an extra 2 wounds, had 2 wounds remaining on it. I killed it in a charge phase with this thing. It sounds cute, but it's a cool little technical trick to have in your back pocket, which I'm not saying you're going to win like tons of games off of it, but it's a good part of your toolbox. In addition to this, the Dogmata has like 1,000 other abilities. She gives Obsec to a unit in the command phase, or double Obsec if they've already got Obsec. She has a 6-inch aura of if a unit is to do an action, it can still fucking shoot and still not fail the action, which is great for an army full of melter guns and bolters if you want to raise banners or rod. All for the low price of 65 points. Next up, we have the Hospitaller, who is both missing part of a model from a breakage at the London GT and is kitted to the 9s. So we've got a Warlord trait and a Relic, which gives her a 6-inch aura of 6-up Feel No Pain and a 9-inch aura of a +1 to invun to core infantry around her. In all honesty, sometimes it's a waste of CP, but in certain matchups, like if people sling a lot of like AP 2 and 3 gunfire into you, it's good to have an invun into that. The main reason I always play a Hospitaller, though, is because she has a strat for reviving models. Generally strapped for 1 CP to res D3 or up to 3, so D3 models. You can put that on the Repentia if they're still alive and near her, but mainly it's going to be on Sacrosanct for your sword and board, or your Retributors, which are big heavy guns, your melters. If you didn't go first, and you lost some melter girls to out of line of sight shooting, like Plague Burst Crawlers, or the buggies from Orcs, you can resing 1 melter girl is enough. If you get to res like multiple melter girls over multiple turns, she pays for herself. Also, I've had opponents leave 1 girl alive and not commit to killing it because they're not scared of 1 melter or 1 sister superior from that squad, and I've walked up and res 2 or 3 models from it, and they have just been like, well, I guess I fucked up. It's not a gotcha. Like, often I would tell people this at the beginning of the game and you just forget about it. It's a lot to carry. So yeah, that stratagem is insane. It just costs you quite a bit of CP. The boring stuff here, 2 squads of Crusaders. They're here for me to pay a CP, put them in deep strike, and they're going to rod and engage in all fronts and maybe kill some guards and some cultists. Next up, a bit less boring, but not that exciting. 3 Battle Sister squads, each one with a heavy weapon. So we've got 2 melters and a heavy bolter because they can advance and shoot. Each squad has a stupid loadout on the Sergeant. You'll see there's a bit in my Retributors as well, where I've just built them to look cool, and then I've got to play them WYSIWYG, so it's just wasting around 20 to 25 points across my entire army of random power swords and fucking Condemner bolt guns. These are my objective secured troops. Then we get to the character babysitters. The Celestia and Sacrosanct's 1 squad of 5 and 1 of 8, 1 with halberds and 1 with maces, and each sergeant gets to carry an Inferno pistol. They never get to hold a multi-melter again, but they do get to fire Inferno pistols in close combat. These girls do well at taking incoming fire. They bodyguard the characters. This means that you can't shoot at characters within 3 of them full stop. Not for if out of line of sight, not for Overwatch, nothing. So Morvenval can sit outside a building, Sacrosanct's going to be in the building, and Morvenval cannot be shot even if you can't see the Sacrosanct, meaning she can just fire crack missiles with impunity and sit on an objective and be gassed. It's very good with Celestine as well, but I haven't. So that's one of the additions I've added to the army. These girls are moderately fighty, but they're not as fighty as Repentia. They can hold their own though, and the Inferno pistol allows them to punch holes in tanks as well. I love them. I think they're like one of the best things in the Codex. Honestly, you shouldn't leave home without a minimum of 10. There probably should be up to 20, maybe 25 sometimes, depending on your composition. These things are fucking awesome. Next up are Dominions. Damage 2 Stormbolters with a strat for some mortal wounds. They're cool at spitting out a bit of damage, but mainly they have a pre-game move of 6 inches, and they can move the transport they're in. This means they can move the Immolator 6 inches, or they can move a Rhino with the 5 girls in it, with another squad of 5 girls that move with them, whether it be Rets or normally objective secured troops. That just gives you some extra movement to get you engaged on all fronts, to get you up on an objective, to get a stranglehold, or just to stage prior to attacking fully on the following turn. And then we get to our meat and potatoes. the Retributors. These are the multi-melter girls. I have 3 squads, fully kitted out, 4 multi-melters each and 2 cherubs each. I would not leave home without these, especially in Argent Shroud. You get to just advance and shoot the shit out of things. Like I said, you get 13 inches of movement out of these if you get a 6 on your advance or use a miracle die. Yeah, the 2 cherubs can be popped in the same turn as long as you have 2 guards available. That's the normal TO rule. Goonhammer did say that that's not the case, but Goonhammer were literally pulling things out of their arse and shouldn't do that. With these things, you want to trade up. You want to add minimum kill like a Redemptor or similar with the squad if you know the squad's going to get killed on the crackback. Alternatively though, if you can kill like the one thing you can see that can see you and still have them behind obscuring terrain, your opponent is going to have to really move out to get these. They can, because the infantry, they just like move through buildings like there's no tomorrow because they can breach everything. So you can really play the terrain to make the angles where you just commit to killing everything that can fire back at you, and you'll get to use them for at least 2 turns. You will often just fire off both cherubs in turn 1 and unload everything to just try and make out as many big threats as possible against knights, against demons, even against high invuln targets or good invuln targets like demons, for example. You just brute force the invuln by just peppering them with d6 damage shots, d6 plus 2 at half range. Using miracle die sometimes to put a 6 in. If you've got a 6, you can put 6 damage in. Yeah, just I like to call it brute forcing the invuln. Like, it's cool you got an invuln, but can you make all the saves? Probably not. And these are really high damage. One squad has a combi flamer on the Sergeant for the Holy Trinity, which is +1 to wound if we're within 12 inches and fire all of our guns at the same target. Just in case you have to guarantee killing the Silent King, Mortarion, or a Knight, because +1 to wound is good on the melters against T8 vehicles or T7 vehicles. And lastly, with our transports, we have a good old-fashioned Rhino, carries 10 girls, has a 6-up invuln because the whole army does, and just here to deliver bodies to objectives and get in the way. It's a classic. The other one is the Sisters version of a Razorback. People think these are too expensive at 150 points with 2 multi-melters on it, but that is 4 multi-melter shots and 3 shots of heavy bolter on a platform that carries 6 bodies. I think this is decent in particularly Argent Shroud. The important thing is with a squad of Dominions in it, it can pre-game move 6. Then they can advance a minimum of 14 with a Sacred Right. This means that you get to go 6, then 14, then 24 inches of shooting. That's 44 inches of threat range. That's 44 inches of threat range. It allows you to get angles on hidden enemies behind buildings, on transports or tanks. Sometimes you just sling out the board and you blow up a Drukhari boat. Sometimes you just get, you know, a shot on a decent tank, maybe a Plague Burst crawler, and just bracket the thing. And don't forget, we're rerolling one attack or 1 wound, just to really push up the efficiency of our melters. Of course, if you can't trade it up or bracket something significantly and it's going to get blown away, you can play it outside of threat range at a backfield thing and then pull it up later once your vets have killed their anti-tank. This is a T7 body with a 6-up invuln that you can have -1 to hit it on a smokescreen strat, so it is quite a durable thing. It's basically a Retributor squad that doesn't die to bolter fire, so you can play it as such, sometimes using it in the mid to late game as a firing platform once you've killed all their anti-tank. And that's it, that's the army. Fuck, I love this army. In round 1, I'm against Phil from Rapid Fire Wargaming, who's playing the new Hive Fleet Leviathan Nids. Haven't even read the rules properly, so I need to read up on them. And I'm very scared of Hive Guard into my T3 1-rune girls. Probably gonna have to use my Rhino and my Razorback to hide my Retributors. The problem is with Rets is that you don't get your... if you get out of a vehicle and then advance, you can't shoot. And you get -1 to shoot if you get out of the vehicle, because you can't count as remaining station coming out of the vehicle, as the rare rules state. So, I'm interested to hear what you think about how my army is going to perform, what you think of all the melter spam, and are you excited for No Retreat? No Retreat will be streaming on SN Battle Reports this weekend. There'll be a link to their channel in the description below, and they are also fundraising through just giving to fundraise for 2 charities in Gibraltar. This is Gibsams, which is like a support line for people with mental health issues, and Walking Together Foundation, which is a wider like social issues program. Whilst both are Gibraltar based, for example, Walking Together, they do fund programs in other countries as well, so it's a worldwide charity. It's gonna be a fantastic thing. They've got a modest sum of £2,000 to raise. Hopefully our viewers can help smash that. We're already at like 1,200. I want to smash that goal and push towards a much higher top. One of the criticisms we saw when the poster went up with a lot of pasty white faces on it is that the event is a lot of white cis men. There is not a lot of representation of people of colour or women. And in all fairness, this is completely legitimate criticism, and the team have taken it on board. When this criticism came about from a few people on Twitter and on social medias, I did talk to the organisers, SN Battle Reports, and they said they did reach out to try and get people of colour and women to the event, and it just hasn't worked out this time. And I'm willing to believe them, honestly. There's been a weird vitriolic response I've seen. I had one person comment on one of my social media posts saying that we're disgusting for being a group of white men, and that charities shouldn't accept donations from just groups of white men, which is so strange. It's such a weirdly angry and resentful way of engaging with something that is a legitimate thing we should be talking about. This is also weird as we aren't exclusively white. I mean, I don't want to use this as a token, and Quipster doesn't want to do this either, but Quipster is quite open about being not a white man. He is not Caucasian. He came here and we hung out and made a battle report we're very, very proud of. It's playing on the monitor behind me now. You should all go check it out. It'll be linked in the comments and stuff. Yeah. Quipster doesn't want to be token person of colour either, and we need to improve that representation and diversity because representation and diversity matters. There was a time where I would get, and I still get it a little bit to this day, where I shouldn't bring politics into games. So this has all been about the sister battle in my army, and now I'm talking about diversity and inclusion. So there'll be one or two of these comments in the comment section down, but usually it's the right wingers telling me to stop being political. So it's very, very strange to have people commenting on my social media posts on my channel as well, the one that I'm talking about, where they're telling me that I'm a disgusting for being a part of a group of white men. Like, either way, it's a charity event and we're raising money for fantastic causes. There'll be links to the Just Giving page down below. I have every faith that Pardo and his team are going to improve the diversity and inclusion of the next event. There's been talks of how they can do that already. I know people are going to say, well, talk is cheap and everything, but look, we're in the middle of COVID. It's not easy to organise events right now, right? The pandemic is still going. So cut them some slack. And yeah, I have every confidence that this will improve in future. So I'll see some of you on the live stream this weekend over on SN Battle Reports, where I will be hopefully at least on one of the tables that gets streamed. There should be some commentary, there should be full-on games, we're going to be raising money, it's going to be great. I can't wait to meet a lot of creators that I have spent time watching their content over the last 16 months getting into the hobby, watching them make battle reports and now making my own. It's going to be cool to meet these people, hang out and enjoy the hobby. I'm Vince. I'm going to sign off now. Just remember that I think we should be lifting each other up and not tearing each other down. Like, we don't need to eat each other, right? We should be working together towards a more progressive and improved future. And that doesn't start with comments like, everyone in this poster looks like a school shooter, or whatever the fucking stupid comments were on Twitter and similar. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Up with my army, my chance at no retreat against actual pro players. And yeah, the inclusivity conversation as well. It can be a conversation that is had and we can make improvements from. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi on the internet, and I'll see you soon. Ta-ta for now.